You found a quiet corner of your mind, a shelf where all the broken things were piled. The stories told in whispers and in scars brought you here beneath these waiting stars. Not for a fix or just to soothe the ache, but for the chance that something new could break. So let the silence hold you like a seam where every thread of hope begins to gleam. This is the in-between. Welcome to the butterfly room, where healing's not an end, it is a tune. You learn to hum and gentle afternoons. Transformation blooms from a cocoon of questions you'll be led to see the colors waiting in the thread. Welcome to the butterfly room.
That's right. Welcome to the Butterfly Room. And of course, we've got a great show that'll be planned again today. I'm going to bring in Toya. She's got an amazing guest and some amazing information that they'll be sharing and all along those lines. So I'm here to bring her in as I'm at the Haiti Heritage Center. And of course, we've got Bakari Sellers here today, but I'm going to bring Toya in so she can talk about these amazing guests that she's got and all along those lines. So Toya, hope you're doing well. We're having a very busy day here at the Haiti. So we've got Bakari Sellers, the commentator, political commentator, as well as politician and activist, and he's here at the center. So I'm going to turn it over to you. And I know you got these amazing guests that'll be joining you.
Thank you so much, Mark. Mark is always on double duty, but we appreciate him in the Butterfly Room. So thank you, everyone. We are blessed to have episode 17. And as you know, sometimes our alignment just occurs. So I was at a church event and I saw one of the ladies that I grew up with, her daughters. And now we are here today in the Butterfly Room. So before I get going, I just want to just say that sometimes you just never know what's going to happen. And today we're going to learn about the broke down church on 7th Street. And we're going to be meeting Shirley Heavens Andrews, as well as Charles C. Peary. And they're going to tell us about this book, A Church on the Verge of Collapse, a son lost in bitterness, a praying mother who refuses to give up. And just to give you a little bit about the authors, Shirley is a ministry leader, storyteller, and devoted woman of faith. And she writes about hope, purpose, and trusting God's promises. And for Charles, he's also a church leader, Sunday school teacher, and supply chain professional who writes with clarity, faith, and passion. And when we can't wait to meet these folks. So you know what, Mark, bring in our guests into the Butterfly Room. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Yes. And like I said, you know, alignment is very important. And as you know, everything that I do on the Butterfly Room is because of my, experience in the field. And basically right now, as I said, I post in a video that I had picked one day, it's talked about this as far as staying connected, cultural versus doctrinal, as far as us, for believers, when you go to church and, sometimes people come and go. And I know that for folks that I talk to working in a mental health center is, sometimes, you have your bottom, et cetera, but everyone has a different journey. So right now to actually have these authors here to talk about this book. Wow. So how long did it take for you to get this manuscript? But before we do that, just tell us a little bit about yourself. I gave you a little bit, but is there anything else that you want to add in addition to my intro?
Yeah, maybe I'll start. So my name is Charles Peary. You can tell from my surname that it doesn't originate from the shores here. I was born in Zambia. Zambia is on the southern part of Africa, closer to South Africa. And I came from a family of 7, and 5 people in my family died of HIV, and it was only me and my sister that survived, my elder sister. And then at some stage in my career, me and my wife moved to the United Kingdom, went there to do my master's degree in supply chain. And we stayed there for a while until our kids joined in. And we spent, initially I wanted to go back, but my wife said, well, your kids are here, I'm working, so make sure I find a job quickly so that we can settle. That's how I ended up staying. And for 23 years, we were in the
Wow.
UK until about 3 years ago, when the company that I work for moved me from the UK to come and work here in the United States at our head office. I work for Bristol Myers Squibb, one of these pharmaceutical companies. So I've got two beautiful girls, they're adults, and we've got a granddaughter. That's me. Thank you so much.
Thank you for letting us know your journey. Now you see how this is, how amazing this is, that now that you're here unfolding a book.
Yes.
Ooh, so that means this is going to be rich in culture, because now we have, here we talk to the Black and brown communities and anyone, but just to see the evolution of how you came over here to the States. Yes. And now Miss Shirley.
Yes,
I remember her over at Second Baptist Church of Metuchen, and it's just that now I'm just ecstatic.
Because now look, yeah. Well, you know what? God, there's no such thing as coincidences when it comes to God. And the fact that I ran into you was so off and on I have, over the years, because we like that backyard.
It's always a barbecue. I always see you at least once a year at a barbecue.
Always a barbecue, yes. So it was, but God was in it this time. He truly was. If anybody told me I would be writing a book, as a matter of fact, 2 books, I would have told them they were crazy. But God has put people in my path to help me, because I had no clue what I was doing. Brother Charles was one of he just stepped up, and the Holy Spirit just said, ask Brother Charles to help you on your second book. Now, my first book was about the 7 sins that God hates. Mm-hmm. And I put a little spin on it to make it more interesting, and it's got some funny parts to it, but to make those sins come alive, so we always hear that we don't fight against flesh and blood, but the spirit. And so this basically was with that book. So I'm not going to tell you anymore. That you'd have to go and read it. But
you might have to come back for that one.
Yeah, I most certainly will.
Bring you to the book club for that, because now I just want to get back to the basics. I love to read, and just attending Catholic school, we had summer reading. Now that's something that with my nieces and nephews, if I can, I buy books so that they can read. Because in the summertime, it should be enrichment. And I just feel like the brain, you should constantly be learning. So that's one thing. I know my niece's mother, they always go to the library. So that's very important. So now we have some materials that you can identify with. And I think that for anyone listening, for us in the Black and brown communities, math was always my thing. But then when I had to read these passages for these standardized tests, there was nothing that I identified with my culture. So, this is why I really like to do this, because how are you supposed to know anything? Each one teach one. So as I spoke to some of the other teachers, right now, some of the kids now don't understand the struggle, because everything is targeted information. So now if you have these books and they're burning books, one of the platforms that I'm on the couch, if you can check them out on Facebook and on YouTube, that's one of the things, is one of the guys that we have from North Carolina, where he stands on the corner and he would give books out. So that's like a walking library. So maybe something that you would want to do, because folks need to know what our history is, because you know what? It liquidates the struggle. Yeah. So now when I saw the title, I said, this would work, because I am a believer. I guess, as I reached half a century, you have to think, even for your own life. You attended church, because that's the only church that I know is where you were. And of course, you go to college, you come back. Hey, Dr. Diamond. And then from there, look where you are now. You're speaking of different stages of your life. And I thought it was a very meaty topic, because like you said, the broke down church. And as we'll get into that, but we will have Dr. Diamond here. Good evening, Dr. Diamond. How are you?
Hi. Good. How's everyone?
Thank you for coming out today. Everything's good?
Yes. I'm just listening.
Okay. All right. So we're going to get into some of these questions. So now that we have this book, and it's called The Broke Down Church on 7th Street at the Crossroads, What is a central message you hope readers take away from it?
Well,
I think the main thing I hope people take away from it is that in this walk that we have with Jesus, it's not always an easy one. And it's going to be situations and things that come up in our lives, no matter how strong we feel our faith is, that it's going to question us, it's going to challenge us. And I think with this book allows us to believe that that's okay, and that we're going to have ups and downs and we're going to have disappointments, but we have to persevere. We have to keep the faith. We have to surround ourselves with people that can lift us up when we feel like, we can't go anymore. And I think that's going to be the main message that I want to get out of the book, that God can take the broken and he can fix it. We just believe that he can and just wait on God.
Yeah, just to add on to what Sister Sherry has said, if you just look at the title itself, the broke down church, first you're looking at the building that is broke down. The church itself, which is the body of Christ, is broken. And within that church, you've got individuals that are also struggling in their lives. So you've got two sections of this book that is looking at the church struggling. They can't pay the pastor, they can't pay their bills in the church. But at the same time, you have people in this church that are struggling spiritually. There's one young man, particularly, who was brought up in the church and ended up leaving the church because he was disappointed with God, that God was not there when his father died. And that pain, that hatred that he had towards God made him to run away from God and ended up in some terrible situation which the devil took advantage of and actually used him to destroy the church. So, but what we see in this book is basically what is happening in society right now. Mm-hmm. Churches are struggling, but people in the church are struggling, struggling because of pain, struggling because of unanswered prayers, struggling because the church is hurting. And this is what this book is trying to address here.
Thank you so much. And that's what I thought that would be a good segue based on the information that I had mentioned in the video, because sometimes people struggle and they don't want to go and get fed. I know at my pastor, Pastor Peterson, he mentions that, that's the hospital. That's when you want people to come.
Mm-hmm.
What people do is they don't want to come out of shame. Mm-hmm. And that's just one of the things when I returned back, that was the only church home that I knew. And it says, come as we are. And just remember, years ago when the choir, we used to wear robes. Now you would think, I remember Sister Act 2. He said, come as you are. And I think that if that message is relayed, people will be more forthcoming. And that's just one of the things with, working in a mental health center. We had to do biopsychosocial assessments. And one thing that we did with motivational interviewing was saying that spirituality is the glue. And that's something that John Craigie has a book, is Feeling Good. So when I was able to have a opportunity to be in the focus group as he was, he had just published his book. And it was interesting because, when you have someone as a psychiatrist, they have different editions. So basically you're part of the focus group so that they can do their next edition. And I didn't understand that. So a lot of these look different scales, but most of the times folks were coming in for research studies. So I saw that. So the people who actually were there at the university came and got paid for the information. So that means that it was truthful. So is there anything, just to kind of experience, and before I have Dr. Diamond, she had any other questions, or did you have any focus groups for the information that's in this book, or was more so just the two of you collaborating?
Well, for me, I can say, I know without a doubt it was the Holy Spirit, because I never even thought about writing a book. But once God gives you something, no matter, you may not feel like you're qualified, but God will put what you need. He'll put the people you need to talk to in your path. He'll give you the resources that you need. And I mean, where else could I come up with a title? Broke Down Church on 7th Street. Okay.
Yes.
Where, so I said, okay, Lord, what do what more do you want me to have for me to say? And the Holy Spirit, I know without a doubt, pointed me to Brother Charles that could help me with this second book, which is just phenomenal. I'm just so excited about it. Can't wait for people, to read it. But I want people to realize when they read it that you're not alone. And the
Yes.
power of prayer, prayer is what kept the main character, Devin, even though he had gone off the road, but prayer was what brought him back. And we have to remember that too, that prayer works. We don't always see the results right away, but we have to be persistent and just keep that prayer life going.
Yeah,
Yes.
Just you mentioned focus group, right? It wasn't like a focus group per se. I think um, because Sister Shelley and I are very active in the Sunday school at church. A number of topics have been discussed. It took us 12 months to write this book. And during this time, a lot of discussions were taking place in Sunday school, and we got some of the thoughts from those conversations. And we learned a lot from that in terms of how God was dealing with us as a church as we were going through those Sunday school studies. So that is the source of some of the information that is in this book, but also, the connections that we've had with a lot of people, in particularly in Zambia for me, in the UK, and Sister Shirley here in the US. Our connections have actually brought a vast of experience, spiritual and Christian experience that we've actually put on paper. So when you look at this book, and it was deliberate. We wanted this book to be a novel, but at the same time, a devotional book. You will never find a book like this. There's a lot out there in the world, but this is the only one that is a novel with very inspirational characters in there. It's some bit of fun in it, but there's also devotional part of it. There's theological teachings that are linking up to the story that you see in the book.
Wow. Thank you so much. Dr. Diamond, you have any questions for our guests?
I do have some questions, but before I ask the questions, I'm a believer as well, but you do have those that are non-believers.
Yeah.
And how do you feed those people that are non-believers? Because you talk about the brokenness, but something, have them in a position where they feel like they don't believe. Because like you said, the young man was a great example of that. When you're grieving and you go into God and you're talking to God and you're saying, why me? Why did this happen to me? And then all of a sudden that brokenness has them turn away from spirituality. So what this book that you wrote, how does that answer or give an answer to those that become now, I would say, the non-believer?
Yep. Yeah. There's a section in this book that basically explains the demise on Earth. What is going on planet Earth right now is as a result of the obviously the fallen angel, Satan and his angels that were cast on Earth. And the Bible says, woe to the earth because of the evil one who has been cast on Earth. And so the world, to a great extent, is influenced by these powers that are causing people to have absolutely no remorse. They enjoy committing sin. They enjoy doing something evil. And what we're trying to address in this book is that people should realize that what they are doing right now, it's not something that they were born with. It's not something that just comes on its own, but there's a force behind it, the force, which is the evil one, that is drawing a lot of people away from God in order for them to continue doing what they're doing. So we've put that one in there. If you look at Devin was not an atheist. Devin was not a rebellious in nature, but because of what he went through in life, he became resentful. And there are a lot of people that are not Christians that are suffering pain they've absolutely got nowhere to go. You see people committing suicide because they've reached a dead end. They think that there's no hope for them. This book is explaining exactly what hope is about, that you don't need to jump off the cliff, but there's a solution to that, which is God can actually address your situation and move you away from there. There's a boy in this book called Joe who was a drug addict, and by just connecting with Devin, he ended up getting converted, and he became an elder of evangelism in the church, going after people in the streets that are drug addicts. And this is what we see in modern life. We see a lot of people in the streets that are suffering because of this evil that is influencing the world.
I think I just wanted to just piggyback on that. I think what causes this book to stand out, because let's face it, there's a lot of Christian books out there, and some of them are just boring. I don't know how else to put it. They're boring, and they don't capture, your attention long enough to really understand what the book is trying to say. But with this book and the characters that the Holy Spirit gave me, they're relatable. There's and you can put yourself in their position. They're just regular people, just like you and I, or going through things just like you and I do. So I think the relatability, the fact that the story has a lot of funny parts in it, and it helps you to realize, even when you don't realize it, that you're going to be okay.
Yes, thank you. And that's one of the things that I can say as working in substance abuse, that is a big thing. When you think about 12 steps, we'll tell someone to do 90 meetings in 90 days. And the reason why is because the factors at home, we always say avoid negative people, places, and things. So that means that if I'm trying to walk a straight and narrow and I have all this at home, so one of the things we look at the social, where are you living? If you're in an environment that's going to be a trigger, what do you do in those particular cases? Sometimes folks don't have nowhere to go. And, as I said, my father was on the show, just say no. But how can you say no when I got to go back into whatever I was in? And I want to just make reference to the video that I earlier today from Grown with Keon and Shawnee. And basically one of the excerpts is said in there for anyone, you can go to the Butterfly Room today. Keon has said it. TD Jake said he's never seen times like this before. And I really wanted to highlight that. And you're basically parallel with that. He said that right now, these children, now you have 9/11, you have COVID-19, political scene, you have latchkey kids and similar thoughts. So how you have to think when folks are trying to combat, you have to say that the enemy, the negativity, as a previous guest said, you're living in spiritual warfare. You're walking around, if this spiritual suicide is, if I don't know who I am, if I don't know who I am, and I'm gonna just give a little example. When I was unfolding this, lost my grandchild, my uncle, and then my nephew. So that was a lot for me. So then I had to figure out, how do I get out of that? And that's where, for me, as Dr. Diamond can say, for anyone that's a mental health professional, usually when we hear, sometimes we don't always disclose, but that's what allows us to push and want to be able to be innovative in this field. Because if you think someone's upbringing, and then you say here, again, like Steve Harvey had said, your success is where you started from, right? If I started here and I've elevated, my success may be different from someone. Maybe is that, I dropped out of school in the 6th or 7th grade. Just by me going to finish my GED, that's me. And a lot of times I'll meet someone, they'll say, Miss Toya, I don't have this. I said, you can go to the community college. So what I have done in the past, connect them to the community college. They're remediated, but no one knows. They're not going to adults learning center or anywhere like that. So their self-esteem is uplifted, because when all they know is they're going to a college, right? No one knows that they're remediated. Even at the school, a lot of EOF kids, I was an EOF student. Some of those folks were remediated. I placed out of it. And that was the first time that I understood the program. So then once I graduated and got into the field, that's something that I spoke to them. You hold your head high. You hold your head high. It doesn't matter. You're here. You passed that test. Now, the test told me, guess what? You have to be remediated in math. There are some people that I know that graduated from my school and they took that test and were remediated. So it doesn't matter. So, you're sitting here judging yourself and putting a label on you. But I want to go into another question. I know we talked about Devin. Now, Devin's story is incredibly moving. Why do you think his journey resonates with so many people?
Yeah, I think I can take this. So if you look at Devin, he was brought up in the church. When he was born, I used to go to Sunday school, and he was doing everything that he needed to do as a child of coming from a Christian family, and he never, experienced any suffering in the house. The father was working extremely hard to bring food on the table, but all of a sudden there was a disaster in the family. The father died. He didn't even die. He didn't even suffer, i.e., an illness, but he just died suddenly. Devin, when he looked at this, he was shocked because all he was brought up with is this happy family. And so when he saw the mother crying and breaking, he was really touched, right? But the first few, I would say, months, the situation, he was trying to figure out what was going on until he started seeing the mother struggling to pay the bills, to put food on the table. That's when it dawned on him that life is not the same. And then he went, every evening he could see the mother praying to God, and then he started asking questions. But why is my mother asking God when God wasn't there, when my father died, and see, God is not even helping us. We can't even have food on the table. We can't even pay the bills. What's going on with this God? And so the way this story resonates with a lot of people, both Christians and non-Christians. So there are people that have lost loved ones. There are people that are hurting because of various disappointments. Could be marriage disappointments. It could be anything that is going on in life. And this has caused these people to really isolate themselves and start asking questions to say, but why me? Why have I been rejected by people, right? And so this story is basically something that happens in real life. We see this happening, but the question is, where do you take that disappointment? Do you keep it to yourself and eventually getting depressed and even taking your life? Or do you go somewhere and seek help? The doctor is there on the call here. I'm sure she does receive a lot of people coming in to get support. So what we're offering in this book is a spiritual support where people can read in the book and they will see the turnaround. God can rewrite someone's history. It doesn't matter the background and what someone has gone through. God can rewrite that chapter and turn things around for us.
Yeah,
I think
I'm listening to y'all conversation and everything like that. Hey, Dr.
Mark.
Toya, and one of the things I was thinking about is this conversation is very similar to what Bakari Sullivan was talking about, because we got him over at Haytime, but you talking about how the number one cause of failure among our.
Yeah.
Do you know what it is, Charles? It actually will surprise you, and I think it will surprise Dr. Diamond. It is hunger, because a lot of our students are going and they are actually facing hunger, and that's
Mark, you're going in and
your
out.
take
If
on
you
that,
can
because he was
repeat
also
that.
talking about how he would like to see examples of and give those kind of examples, which we don't see enough of, and everything like that. So I just wanted your take, and maybe y'all might have some similar views, because he's talking about how the left and the left are fighting against each other, meaning like the AOCs versus the more established kind of folks and everything like that. But it's been a quite fascinating conversation. But y'all's conversation is very similar to what he was talking about, because when he said that the number one cause of hunger among our kids was hunger, that's a scary thought. And then he also said that African American, which you'll like, Toya, mortality among women is probably our number one health concern in the nation, but it's not being addressed like the number one health concern.
Yes. Did you catch all of that, Charles? I know he was in and out.
No. If you can just summarize it, I didn't catch the.
Yeah, you were in and out, Mark. If you can repeat that, please.
All right. Can y'all hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was saying that Bakari was telling to he's over here at Haytop. We're talking about how the number one cause of hunger in our community, and particularly among our kids, is hunger. So that's one of those issues that he was talking about while he was here. But he was also saying how mortality, and particularly the mortality rate among African American women, is one of the number one health concerns. And a lot of times these things are not being addressed, and all along those lines. So y'all's conversations are paralleling the other conversation that's going on in my cultural arts center and everything like that. So I'm just hearing some parallels among your conversation, even among some of the things that you're trying to do with your book. Because a lot of times we are hearing people not understanding that we need strong role models. Like, if we're going to see, if we want people to be Black lawyers, we need to show them Black lawyers. If we want people to be Black astronauts, we need to show Black astronauts. So those are some of the examples that he was giving. And I was just wondering your thoughts around that.
Yeah. So in the UK, there's a saying that we always refer to, which is I was brought up in the streets. Okay, parents have abandoned their children.
Yeah.
They don't care for them, and these kids, you see them growing up in the streets. They have no one to model. They've nothing to aspire for. You see them, all they do is relate with their friends, and their friends are basically what their lives is about. When they get home, house is just a place where they just go and sleep, right? And so if there's a gap in the family, and this goes to families and the fathers and mothers, if they abandon their responsibilities around familyhood, the situation that you see is what you've just mentioned, brother. There'll be hunger in society. There will be displeasure in society. Kids will be growing up without a vision, without a purpose, and anything that comes in form of enticement to give them some satisfaction, they'll go after that. And things like drugs, they will go after drugs. And if it means stealing, they'll go after that because it's something that they want to use to close the gap that is there. So what I see is not so much we're looking at the children, but the broken marriage, broken families. Parents are not doing what they're supposed to do. In this book, you see this lady, the mother, Irene, the mother to Devon, she did not abandon the son, that even if he left the house, she continued praying to God that God will bring the son back, and eventually God answered their prayers. That's what parents should be doing, praying all the time for our children.
Hey, Charles, just really quickly. I'm sorry, and I'm sorry to cut you off, Toya, but I'm going to get out of the room in a minute, let y'all continue the conversation. But Charles, isn't part of the problem, because that's what Bakari was saying, is that it was done intentionally. And I think even Dr. Diamond and her husband, when he's been on our shows, has talked about it as well, because there was an intentional effort to get the Black male out of the household. And there's definitely been an attempt to disenfranchise and break up the Black family. So I'm sure your book even deals with that, because it happened not just here, but it happened in London, it happened in African countries and a number of other places as well. So what is your thoughts around this notion of how the system has intentionally broken up the family?
Yes, I agree with you, and it's because of they've tagged the Black men with a very bad tagging. They're responsible. They don't care. This is true, but we need to reverse this notion. And in my view, I lead Sunday School Church, but I'm also in charge of the men's fellowship at church. These are some of the discussions that we have at our men's fellowship to give encouragement to these men that, guys, you haven't lost the battle. You need to focus on God and your family. You can turn things around, and teaching them about how to love their wives, how to love their children, teaching them how to apologize when things go wrong, right? And so I think the society needs a group of people, focus groups that should help the men to be able to come out from that shell or that tagging that they have come out from there, and to be able to actually drive the communities ahead. And this is not only happening in the US, it's happening in the UK as well. But guess what? In Africa, the situation is different. You see men very, very responsible for their families. So I take this to be like in the Western world where everything is materialistic, is driven by wealth and money. You see this to be very prominent, but in the African context, it is not, because a man will go in the field and grow vegetables, grow corn, and provide to the family. You see them being very responsible in that context.
Yes, thank you for that, because that's one of the things that in the video that was posted today, it discussed about purpose-driven life. And right now, that's what you're speaking of. Right now, the cliche is you're a product of your environment, but it's your decision of what you want to do. And I believe Dr. Diamond, as I said on the couch, you spoke about belonging. And this is basically what it is, what you're speaking of, just to connect the two. And I know that's something that we spoke about, and maybe possibly you can come on her show, because basically what we're discussing right now is similar to your book. Basically is addressing, there is something going on in a household looking to belong. The mother is constantly praying. And that's really what's happening. I know we pray for our children. And one of the things, like if you go, it says that when the enemy attacks and the church feels broken, God still rebuilds. And that's one of the things. And you said your story is a story of brokenness, intercession, and redeeming power of Christ. So that's why I felt it was a good topic for a believer and non-believer, because these are issues. And most of us, the Black and brown communities, most of us have church in our upbringing. It's just that what do you decide to do? One of the things they say, the kids always come back. And then I posted last week about God is trying to tell you something. And remember in The Color Purple, remember she came back, she said, Paul, sinners have soul too. You understand? And in that particular scene, for anyone, go to the Butterfly Room, I posted that. And it's crazy because now I see you and here we are. Most of the stuff that I see, I'm inspired. And then I just post depending on what's going on and what I feel should be and it's always a parallel. And that's one thing, putting works together. And sometimes I think that we all are thinking alike. It's just our perspective. Where did I start? Did I start here or there? One of the things I say, what got me out of my struggle was I walked like this. When I pulled back and I saw that, that's when I guess I was enticed. I was driven for school until you come outside. And sometimes I'm a little slow with that. And I say that sometimes it's your journey. People should not worry about that. But I guess in Devin's case and your character, his mother was a praying mama. I have one other question before we go to Dr. Diamond. If you could, if you could summarize this book in one sentence, what would it be?
Well, just based on the conversation and what I feel the Holy Spirit has put in my heart is that we have to always remember that we don't fight against flesh and blood. We just don't. It's the spirits that we have the war against. And I think the Bible, or the book rather, reminds us of that, especially with the big boss, who his name is in one of the fallen angels I've named in the book. And basically, it shows the tricks that Satan uses on believers and non-believers. And how important it is, especially for believers, to know the word of God so that we recognize when Satan is doing one of his, I call them like dirty tricks. And that's what happened to Devin, So when the Bible talks about putting on the full armor, it's so we can protect ourselves. When the Bible tells us that we have to know the word, so we recognize when the darts are coming at us, that we recognize we know what to do about it. But that's why a lot of Christians have a hard time, because we don't read the word like we should. I'm guilty. Don't read the word like we should. We don't have the prayer life that we should. But yet we expect to be covered in everything. And sometimes when things happen, as it did with Devin, it was a learning experience. God had to break him and bring him to a certain point, that he finally realized, what he was doing. So I think that's what I would hope people would take, out of it, is the know that the fight that you have is spiritual, you know. And the same thing you're talking about with men and young boys and people of color and stuff. And a lot of families, we dropped the ball, you know, on that. You know, when I was coming up, them grandparents and aunts and uncles, they put you in check. Okay,
Yep.
that news beat you home before you got
I know
home.
that
You
phone
was
was like,
up.
and you walk up in the house, they already know where you were.
Thank you. You know, it's different out there, but you got babies having babies. You got 13, 14-year-olds having babies. What do they know about, you know, being a mother responsible? So there's a lot of blame to go around. But as Brother Charles has said it in the book, it took a praying mother, not just her, Irene, but and Toya, you'll recognize the names in the book because I use our childhood friends' names. So you'll recognize.
Okay. I can't wait to
You
really get
recognize,
into
yeah.
it.
But it was the power of prayer, you know, that those prayer meetings, you know, without fail, you know, that they came together, you know, and rallied around Irene to hold her arms up while she was going through what she was going through. And that's very important.
Yeah, maybe just add one or two things. What you see in this book is a situation where it's very clear that God is in the business of restoring lives. God is in the business of rebuilding communities and bringing lost people home. If you look at the book of Luke, chapter 15, verses 20, we see a story of the prodigal son. We see that this boy, when he came back to his senses, he knew that I'm suffering here, but I've got a father somewhere. I need to go back to my father, and I'll tell him that I'm not worthy to be your son. I just want to be your servant. But notice how his father reacted. He ran after his son, and he was very, very happy that his son came in and put up a big party to welcome the son. This is what is in this book, that no matter what people go through, no matter how dark your life may be, God is in the business of restoring you. He will bring you back to where you are supposed to be. God, when Adam and Eve sinned before God, we know that there was a separation between man and God. But through Jesus Christ, the death he suffered on the cross, that bridge was built between us and God. And right now, we don't need a holy priest to pray for us. We can access God in our closets, in our rooms, and seek reconciliation and asking him to turn things around for us. So this is what is very, very common in this book.
Yeah.
And before I get to Dr. Diamond's comment, I want to just say that, Shirley, this is the book I read, Be Still and Know. I love this thing. So, for example, for today, so sometimes when I don't have time, I just read this. And for example, today is July 17th. It says fascination. Those who love your teachings will find true peace and nothing will defeat them. Psalm 119, 165. Then it has a little total. It says, the natural result of love is fascination, to be drawn to something so irresistibly that nothing can keep you from it. When we fascinate ourselves with the word of God, we become an indestructible force in the spirit realm. We cannot be easily subjected to the lies of the enemy when our hearts have been saturated in the truth. By loving the teachings of God, his wisdom becomes our confidence and his presence our reward. Then at the end, it has a prayer. So today's prayer is, God, give me a love of your teachings. When my flesh rises up against your truth, help me to overcome it by your spirit. Let me be fascinated by you. Give me a love for you and your word that is unmatched by any other love in my life. And when I read these, this gets me going. I give these for gifts, you know, and because when I'm having a day, it seems like it always works. Like today, we're talking in parallel fascination. What you're saying is that love. They always say God is love, but sometimes we feel that we stumble, he won't be there for you. But we know that in the video that was posted today, it says, you know what, where's the grace and mercy? You know, we get that. But what happens is That person who's an elder, he said in a video that that's 20 years, 30 years. So you have to have grace for these young folks. The young folks are going to replace us. Like we're going to replace you one day. Right? Remember when I was a little girl running around with your daughter. So now look now, and it bugs me out. Right now I see the church. And she has a twin, Dr. Diamond. Her and her sister in the choir stand. I can see that in my face right now. In my memory. Yep, you and your twin sister. So you see how that goes. And now, with time, if you're blessed to have life, look where we are. Dr. Diamond, you have any questions for our guests?
No, I just have some comments, and they're going to align with what you're saying. I'm listening to what we lost, and what we lost is our entire village based on how things transpired throughout the years. Each generation is totally different, so you are going to get the confusion or the statement of the unknown. When you have the unknown is fearful. So when no one knows what's on the other side of that, you will have the youth that will challenge that thought and say, spirituality, what does that mean? Because they want it tangible. As you said about materials, our system is set up based off of what you stated, which is materials. A lot of the material is economics, money, things like that, materials like cars and clothing, all of these things. And this is, if you want to say the devil at his work, he is at his work. He's busy doing the things or putting those facades up, which is very, could be very fearful. But then your book, I believe what I'm getting from your book is that what you're trying to address is the unknown by giving these stories and twisting, throwing the humor in it, making it realistic for us and behind us. Because if they don't have anything, they're always going to be in limbo, and they're never going you get closer to spirituality because they don't know. So it's always that unknown until it's challenged to say, well, for you, you're here because God made sure you came here. He already ordained the fact that you were going to come here, and through your mother and that family that you're attached to. So now this was already ordained for you, but they don't know that if you don't tell them.
I agree. I just want to go in there, something that you had said that just made me think. When we were coming up, we didn't have a choice whether we wanted to go to church or not.
No, we did not have a choice.
You had no choice, okay? When Sunday came around, you was going to be in church, you was going to be in Sunday school, you was going to usher,
vacation Bible school,
vacation Bible. Every time the church doors opened, you were there. You had no choice. But now, but you don't see that now. Now, kids are 7, 8 years old. Like, I don't want to go. Say, okay, you can stay home and watch cartoons, and as my father used to say, God rest his soul, he said, you don't send your kids to church, you take them. It's a big difference between sending them and taking them. So that's how we've fallen. I know when I raised my daughters, they already knew. I raised my daughters the same way I was raised. They were in church every single Sunday. Now they're grown now, it's their choice, but I planted the seed. That's all I could do, but you don't see that now. You just don't.
Thank you for that, because right now we need to work on solutions. That's really, and this is a part of a solution, changing the perspective.
I'm hoping this book is going to help do that. I
think we have one other question too. And why is it that the message is important today? I kind of think we jumped into that, but why do you feel it's important? Because she basically started already.
I think some people do not know, they don't know that their behavior is as a result of a spiritual force behind what they're doing. Devin, when he left the house, became upset with God. The devil took hold of him and even offered him a job. He started working, and the work was just around falsifying documents, manipulating people, stealing, basically anything that was wicked. But to his sight or in his presence, he thought that was exciting. Again, like the doctor said here, people, it's about the material. What can I get? Cars, big fat account, nice holidays. Devin did not know that this was a trap for him. And so the devil used him to do wicked things. So what I'm trying to say is that this book, the message in this book is very important. When people behave the way they are behaving, they need to know and set their hearts that there's probably something behind the influence or behind what is going on in their lives. There's a spiritual attack or there's a spiritual force behind it. The Bible is very clear. We're not fighting against flesh and blood, but we are fighting against the principalities that are roaming around in the heavenly realm. These fallen angels, they come in and they've got power, though it is limited because God is sovereign, and they have power to influence someone, especially those that are not Christians. They will be, have you noticed someone, we just react and burst, they can kill you anytime without remorse, right? And then they start saying, but where is humanity there? There's a force behind it. So in what we're saying in this book is that there's nothing that happens as an accident to someone's life. It's either you are being influenced by the evil one or you are being influenced by God himself. There's nothing in between. And so that's exactly what we're trying to address in this book, and that there is a solution, and God is there to move us away from that worldly influence, which is made up of the desires of the flesh that a person who's not a Christian cannot overcome, the desires of this world and all the things that the world throws at us, money, excitement, all them things. But also the final one is the devil himself and his fallen angels. So we've got three enemies that people are fighting against. They don't even know that these three enemies are operating in their lives.
Yes, and and it's funny because as I was preparing for this show today, I thought about the movie Seven, and you think about the seven deadly sins, and that was one of the things. And at the end, the wrath. So a lot of that mirrors that I had. We had spoke about that in a Bible study before, because at the end, he basically wanted Brad Pitt to react, and he won because he had him reacting. As you just said, that sometimes there's certain circumstances in our lives. A lot of those movies actually give us a indication, just as your book. So say, for example, if this book ever came to life, it would be similar stories. Just one of the things, and sometimes the children are seeing all this power. I'm not mad at 50 Cent for his movie. However, sometimes when they say parental advisory, they need a parent there to guide their children when they're watching stuff. And that's where sometimes we learn from what we see. But the good thing here now is that, as we always discuss here about the big mamas, the big mamas, if the mama was working, there was always a grandparent there to continue to make sure. But now, due to health or whatever reason, some particular households don't have a big mama. So what do you do there? I like to mentor. So now what I'm doing is we're mentoring through the capacity that I have to make sure that, sometimes when a family may not have it, because there's, people as a single parent had to work multiple jobs, but you have to have a village. So what if you're trying to have that village? What resources are there? So, that's one of the things that I feel that platforms like this, can assist. And again, with our alignment, and here we are today.
Yes. I think one of the things also quickly that the book points out, from the time that prayer was taken out of school, was one of the things that I highlighted in the book. And a lot of people don't realize, I don't think about that, but it had a big impact on Christianity. Just trying to, and that was one of the things that the big boss in my book, that was his goal, was to stamp out anything that had to do with God. and his plot to do that. And now he had entwined Devin to help him, even though Devin didn't know, but to help him do that, because the big bosses was like, no God, no grace, no God, no salvation. So if I can get rid of God, even to the point where you can't even say God bless you if you sneeze, that was his goal. That was what he was trying to do. But then I don't want to give more of the book away, but that was one of the big plots that was going on in this book, and how God turned all that around.
Yeah, and that's where the light comes. I know we always speak about the light and the darkness. Like I said, the show today is about staying connected. And I think that now sometimes your family of origin, long as your roots are deep, someone had told me, raising a boy, and it was like, you can't dig up the roots. You just have to water and nurturing him. And I said, and I never thought about that. And I said, as a visual person, once I visually saw it, I'm sitting here trying to dig up like I'm a rabbit or something to get to the roots. No, I raised him. That's what faith is. Faith is walking by what you can't see. So I said, okay, thank you. It was an older person. And when I visually thought about that, I said, what, eventually they'll come back. But, sometimes, they say that we're the lost sheep. And that's basically what the shepherd does. The rod and our staff will comfort me. And that's what's in the word. So when you visually think about it, we're lost sheep walking out here. Then when we have all this watering, it pulls us back in. And that's where, I felt that this book is talking about how the enemy attacks the churches. And sometimes if you think about what we're going through, we're broken right now. So what he does is the adversary knows what our brokenness is. And I know some of the old folks say, don't say that, because they say God is in your heart. So long as you don't say it out your mouth, then the adversary don't know what's going on. They say, don't cut your nose and spite your face, all these things. So it's just, I laugh, from a Southern family. I said, why did they say all that? Because I guess they were a little superstitious, but, think about their education level. Maybe they didn't know. And that's all they knew. You know better, you do better.
Yeah, and you know better, you do better. Exactly. It makes me also think, too, like the way the world is now, even with churches. Who would have thought that churches would be under attack, that people would go into a church and shoot up people? A church was like holy ground. At least that's how I was raised. And it was like a sanctuary. But now, because so much evil in the world, even a church is not, it's not saved, it's not protected. It's just, the world just doesn't care.
Yeah, I think if I may, I think the Black church has always been the church that was destroyed, because at the end of the day, if you really want to put it where it belongs, we are the chosen people. And when you're afraid of what you don't know, which is us, don't understand the power, the spirituality, we are connected even with our melanin to God. Okay.
Yes.
I'm just speaking for what it is.
That's what it says in the
A lot of people don't know that about us, and we are also lost to it as well, because it was lost so much because through our white counterparts, they have diluted what Christianity what it means. It ties with so many different things because they changed it over time, and they used it in a manipulative way to harm people that don't look like them, and that affects us to this day. So when you look at what is going on in the White House, call it for what it is. Look at that. That's the example what you all are talking about. And then look at us who's sitting and watching. Not even us, but the generation behind us is saying, what are we doing? These people are crazy. So where is God in this situation? Because this man is sitting here.
It's a distraction. It's all distraction.
He's destroying places. He's harming people. He's telling you he's going to do it. So where you see evil there, but then your book is telling us don't give up, because spirituality and God is there, and that's what your book is telling us, and that's what the younger generation as well.
Revelations. If you read the book of Revelations, and there's a part and it talks about standing side by side, a lot of folks say that's a symbolism in that it happened. So there's some folks out there, if you Google, you can see the different events. Like they said, you don't even know what season it is. I remember we didn't have any snow. This year we got overloaded with all these snowstorms, and it's just like you can't really fault what's going on. These fires, I know in New Jersey yesterday, came outside, it was so smoky, from Canada. It's just a lot. So there's different things that are happening, and just that we have to pay attention. That's it. and be accountable for ourselves.
Well, the Bible also tells us there's nothing new under the sun. If you look back in biblical history, there
It
were a
repeats
lot
itself,
of
right, Dr.
really
Diamond?
bad kings and pharaohs and the way they did the people. And I mean, it was just hard. If you watch it and learn about that, you'll see that evil has always been there, you know, but now we can see it in the next 5 minutes, you know, where,
the Bible even talks
the
about
biblical times,
classism
it took
because
a
there's
long time
definitely
for the news to reach, but now we get it the second it happens. And it
Yes,
seems
we do.
overwhelming. And it makes you do wonder, even as a believer, like, where is God? When, you know, when is he going to put a stop to this? And the only thing that keeps me grounded is saying, I just keep saying, God is in control. God is in
Peace be
control.
still. Peace be still.
Exactly. God is in control, and He gets done. What's the part of what is it said? How long, Lord? How long? You know, and that's all we can say. But we
And
have
they say
to
trouble
know.
don't last always.
Oh, it don't last always. But this goes back to Devin, because Devin was hearing things like this his whole Christian life. You know, trouble lasts always. Joy comes in the morning. We sing about songs of positivity all the time, and we think that it's going to happen in our life, and we're not going to have any problems because joy is coming in the morning. Well, I found out through Brother Charles here that sometimes, and the pastor here would know this too, that sometimes between one verse and another verse, there could be 50 years. It seems like it's happening like boom, 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 but it doesn't always happen that way. So that's what we have to remind ourselves, that God is in control. He has a plan. He just decided not to let us in on it yet.
Yeah, remember that song? It was like, I'm coming up.
Yes.
On the road.
Yeah.
That's my grandmother's favorite song.
Yeah, I remember that.
I'm doing my best to make it. That's what we did.
Yes.
Right? That's all we did. You hear that spiritual, they be cooking
That's
them
right.
in the morning. And that's really
those
what it
old
is.
spirituals. I'm not too much in this new stuff, but I love my old stuff.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I put a song on there. So really what we're doing on our two platforms, she is Dr. Diamond is the founder of On the Couch. That's next Saturday at 11. So I'm here, the invitation to continue this, because you know what, each one teach one. So right now, anything that you have, continue to share it so I can post it, because this is something that's good. Because as I said, I want a good read, but I want something that I can identify with.
Yeah.
You know, she just said, you pick up a book, okay, that's kind of slow.
Yeah.
And so forth. So right now we need some good stuff. So keep writing. So and that other book. So now I know you said you had the two. So when did you write the other one? Not to kind of, you could come back again or go on Dr. Diamond.
I guess about 2 years ago. It's a real quick read. It's only like about 50 pages, but the way this book ended, the Holy Spirit let me know there was more that had to be said, and which there was. And that's when he led me to Brother Charles, you know, to really get deep. But the first one, I think you're going to really enjoy it. I've got a lot of positive feedback. It's funny. You may find yourself laughing out loud, you know, but I think you like this. It's about the 7 sins that God hates.
Well, I think you have to come back for that, because basically what we're saying is cultural versus doctoral. And I think that right now we know what the word is, but now the culture is going to dictate, because we're here right now. And I just think that as long as we continue to do what we're doing, as we said right here now, and for anybody, self-help is for all of us. And I think that's what we're trying to convey in our platforms, is that right now, Dr. Diamond deals with the issues. So she'll do that here. This is a little bit more laid back, but right now we want our listeners to understand that right now you have to really invest in yourself in this journey. And as you go on, as you said in this book, it's going to get better. And don't be so hard on yourself. You have to think when you were younger, if you come from that faith base, you how you say, you was in church with your children. Then eventually you're going to experience life, and then you're going to become a parent. Then from there, that's when you're going to go back. So just have some grace for these folks. You have to think the ones that are hard on us, y'all were in our shoes one day too, right, Miss Shirley? Right, Miss Brother Charles? You were in our shoes right now, and then you mature, and then you give us the wisdom. So we thank you today. I don't know. Mark keeps going back in. I didn't know Mark had anything else before we wrap up, because we usually try to do an hour.
Y'all
Mark,
were
did you
doing
have
great.
anything,
I
any other
was
questions
definitely
before we
enjoying
wrap
the
up?
show and the conversation and everything like that. But y'all are wrapping up. I was enjoying the conversation because there's been conversation about the difference around class and race, and definitely it's even talking about the political stuff that y'all were touching on. Because actually, even Bakari was talking about how the difference between Hillary Clinton being president and Donald Trump being president was the amount of people that voted for Jill Stein. So we sometimes have to remember the amount of power that we have and how close we are to snatching victory from defeat and everything like that. So that's part of what they were talking about and everything like that. And even hearing Mr. Charles talk, I know that a lot of times we don't deal enough with class, and the class and race conversation are very much tied to each other. Even Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois talked about that, and that's something that I talk about here at HATI as part of our history talks and all along those lines. But definitely, I've thoroughly enjoyed y'all's conversation, and get ready to get y'all out of here with the commercial that y'all sent me and everything,
Well,
as
we're
well as
gonna do our parting words. We're gonna do our parting words. So you have anything that you breezing through, Mr. Producer?
Just I was enjoying the conversation. Faith is very important. Faith is very important in our journey and everything along those lines. I consider myself more of a spiritual person than a religious person, but I definitely think that sometimes our churches got too caught up in some of the monetary environments. I'm glad that y'all are not doing that, because I am not a big fan of prosperity ministries and all along those lines. And I think that that's one of the mistakes that some of our church, particularly our Black churches, made, is getting too caught in the personality and in the money side, and not the side about it actually spreading the message and the message of God. So I'm a big believer in us being true to what's going on and doing the understanding of what God wants us to do, and not being caught up in the church of personalities or the church of money.
Amen. Yeah. I'm gonna have to send that what you just mentioned there was what my first book was about, prosperity. And how a preacher was called. Well, I don't want to give it away. I'm going to send some books there for you guys to read. All right, and get some feedback on it. But I'm glad that you said that, because that's what the first book is about.
Thank you so much. Usually it's customary what we do parting words. Hopefully Dr. Diamond will pop in. I think she has some connection issues. But right now, what are your last words that you have for the listeners? Because folks will do a playback. As you know, we're on Pod TV, we're also on YouTube and on Facebook. So right now, for anyone that's going to listen to the playback who's not listening to us live, what would you want the takeaway to be regarding your novel?
Yeah, I think what I can say to the people that will come across this book is that God is in the process of turning our lives upside down. And I've got a very humble background, right? I came from Zambia. My dad died when I was 4 years old, and we were brought up by my mother. And she would go and sell vegetables at the market to pay for school fees. And I moved to the UK, a place that I never thought I would go to. And here I am now in the United States. And I work for Bristol Myers Squibb. I've got a very, very high position. And I attribute that not to myself, but to God. Because if I'd wanted, I was when my father died, probably could have died, dying of hunger. As you know, it's prominent in Africa. But God charters our lives. Every step that we go through is chartered by God. And this is what we see in this book. No matter how broken your life is, no matter how broken the church is, carry on praying. And God, in his sovereignty, he is going to address the situation. There's nothing that will happen as a result of an accident in our lives. God knows, and he will rectify that. So get that as an encouragement that whatever you're going through, if you just cast your cares upon him, he will deliver you from whatever situation you are in. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. And you, Miss Lady?
I guess that God's timing is impeccable. You and I mean, I've read it to you before, backyard cookouts all the time and stuff. But this particular, but the timing was right.
The spirit just said to me, invite her.
Yes.
And you were like, I don't know what I'm doing. So this is where I went through a point of a lot of losses. My first grandbaby. So from that right there, it shifted me. I know that Pastor Peterson said, you know, sometimes you have to be shifted so that you can be sifted. So right now, through that point, 2025 was rough. And that was a distraction because I had been writing. This is my book of everything. You see, it says be still. Be still and know is my thing. I have all my episodes written. So all I kept doing was writing, even though I got distracted. So that's what I'm saying. As you just said, this is your second book. And thank you, Mr. Brother Charles, for assisting her. But you know, right now, you know, there's no mistakes in this. And sometimes we don't see that. And I'm just grateful because, you know, Dr. Diamond allowed me to, you know, peel my onion and do this. And sometimes, because at one point you said, I'm nervous. And I said, you'll be fine. Now, how do you feel right now that you basically ripped the Band-Aid off and now you're done?
Yeah, I'm ready to start my own. I'm ready to start my own podcast now.
Okay, but you understand how this works. How eventually you just have to do it, and that's one thing that I can say that you know you have to encourage. You know, be encouraged, and that's really what this butterfly room is about. You know, for me, I worked for different agencies, and I said, you know what, let me try something that is free. You know, this is free service. This is what I did daily. And, you know, in the inner city, and it's just to the point of someone just saying to me, you know what, can we just, why we have to read the Hazelton book? Can we do music? I said, you know what, if it gets you guys here and you start on time, and it worked. So that means that if folks, they want to read this passage and do their check-in, they said, you know what, Miss Toya, we do this at self-help. Can we do something different? And I'm going to put it out there for anyone that is working in a substance use or mental health program, do something different. And when I tell you, the music is basically what got everything going for me and them. Because, and then from there, everything worked. So now I'm trying this. It's been on my spirit. And here we are. Dr. Diamond, are you there? Trying to catch her. Yeah, so I'm going to wait and see if she speaks. I see she's having a connection issue. So thank you so much, because one thing that I feel that is sometimes in our perspective, we just to understand that we agree to disagree. We all know that there is a creator, a grand architect who made us. So I know that as pastors do say, mine specifically say, if the birds have a nest and the foxes have a hole, then who's taking care of the human beings? And I like to say human, that's our flesh. Being is our soul. So you have to think about it. We have our soul, and then eventually we go off somewhere. And that's just one of the things for people who watch sci-fi. And I was just, you know, speaking to someone about that. When you think about some of the supernatural folks, do you notice they always have two sides to them? So whoever wrote that, who wrote that about, you know, those supernatural folks? So just think about it. You know, if that it was the case, sometimes it could just be a symbolism. As I always say with Avatar, you have Awa. I always take Awa as the person that watches us. Right.
I just watched that last night.
Yes. And think about that. I think the last installment was Fire and Ice.
Yes, that's the one I watched.
Right. And so you have to look at that. They had nothing. So when I tell you James Cameron, he's amazing. He's amazing. Amazing. When I say that he can parallel something, and that's where, for me, I've always been a movie person. I love books. But when I did my summer readings, I said, can I read something that I want to read? And, you know, of course, you know, for Catholic school, we had always had one book that we had to read, and then you do the book report, and then you get to read the other ones. You know, I don't know. Did they do that in your country, Brother Charles? Summer reading?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Yeah.
Wow. Because I know there's some folks that I know. I said, do you have any summer reading? And they said no. So certain school districts now don't do that, but some schools do. So I said, you know what? So always when you get ready to move, check to see what they do over the summertime. Keep these children active. If not, get those books. I'm trying to see if is April going to come in, Dr. Diamond, or not. I know we're going to be wrapping up. Mark, you there? Mr. Producer? Okay. I'm just waiting. So I guess right now we're going to get ready to close. I was waiting for Dr. Diamond to come in, but I just want to thank you so much for coming out with us. And actually you blessed us on the butterfly. Oh, now we have Dr. Diamond so she can give her parting words.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. The internet was acting crazy. Okay,
Optimum. Do
so
you have
you,
Optimum?
no, I don't have Optimum.
Okay, because they're the worst sometimes.
Yeah, no. Plus I'm, I switch my office around, so that might be the issue. But anyway, so I do want to, state my parting words. I'm sorry if I didn't hear no one else's. Did everyone else go or no? Not
Yes.
yet.
We're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, from what I gathered today is, make sure we stick to God. Know that God has a plan for us. Don't
Yeah.
give up. You might want to give up, but don't give up. But that
Yeah.
is a part of being a human being. But
Mm-hmm.
that is something that God gives us also, and allow us to be human. And
Yes.
he's always going to be there at our reach.
Yeah.
Remember, just because things are not, your spirituality it is tangible, but because you can't touch God, you don't think that God is there for you. One thing I'm going to remember, something that my grandmother said, and we were kids. It was my brother and I, and we had just lost our mom months before that. And I remember going in her room and she said, I have a relationship with God. I can touch God. And I said, how? Because you can't even see him. Right. But now that I'm the adult, I know what she's talking about now. It's
Yeah.
the connection that you make,
Mhm.
it's the
Yeah.
relationship that you make. And that carries you through your day-to-day life. So remember, just because things look gray now, because of the society we're living in, just remember the old teaching that our folks gave us, because they gave us these jewels and we need to tap back into the jewels, utilize them, and move every day step by step. And remember to also, your book is definitely going to do wonders. So I need to get your book as well. I'm looking forward to the humor part of it, because that brings us back to that human side of us and
Yeah.
all of the experiences that Devin is going to be going through with his
Yeah.
mother. So I thank you for the lesson that I learned today, and thank you. And you all keep going on teaching us. Thank you again.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you so
welcome.
much.
Thank you.
God bless
Thank
you.
you, Dr. Diamond. She always brings that. And the only thing I can say, 'cause I did my Be Still and Know, is your steps are already ordered. So basically, for anyone listening, listen to the playback. This is a journey. It's not every day that you're gonna be good and bad. It's gonna range, but just know that your steps are ordered. You continue to walk by faith, not by sight.
Right.
So now we have a commercial, and as we customarily do, we're gonna have a song, and we hope to see you soon and keep us updated on what you're doing in your journey. And you never know, you might be on the couch one day.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much.
All right.
Text me your
Thank you.
address. I'll get you those books, my first book in the mail.
Okay. All
Thank
right.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
have a
Bye-bye.
good day, evening.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye now. God bless.
God bless.
The demon world was a realm of shadows and whispers, where ambition and fear moved in constant conflict. In its darkest corners, the demon known as the Big Boss watched Devon with a stare colder than midnight. For 2 years, he studied him restless, searching for meaning, unaware that he was being shaped for a sinister purpose. The Big Boss saw potential in Devon, not in his strength, but in his anger. Anger aimed at God. Anger that burned hotter than hellfire. Death, the Big Boss thought, was perfect bait for Christians. They spoke of heaven, yet clung to life with white-knuckled resolve. But Devon was different. He didn't trust God. He didn't even like him. He was furious, and that fury made him the perfect fit for the Big Boss's army. Every box checked. Every wound left open. The Big Boss never spoke God's name. Even thinking it sent tremors through his monstrous frame, showing weakness before his demons was unthinkable. They could never know he, too, had limits bound by orders, forced to answer to the one he refused to name. Still, one obstacle remained: Devon's mother. Her prayers were relentless, a shield of light that blunted every dark scheme. The Big Boss had misjudged her resolve. He expected her to give up, to let hope for her son collapse.
This joy looks good on me. Hey, you can see it on me. Skin bright, so calm, walking with my own charm. No rush, no fear, peace sitting right here. Soft glow, clear eyes, whole life look different now. Took time, took faith, now I wear it every day. I pray for this, I grew for this, now it shows in everything. This joy looks good on me. This peace fits perfectly. I wear my life so beautifully. This joy looks good on me. This light came back to me. Now I shine naturally. When I look at who I am, this joy looks good on me. Hair done, lips soft, the whole mood feel lifted up. Not for show, not for play, I just like who I am today. Built this smile from the ground, kept my faith when none was around. Now my heart's a real light, and it shows in how I shine. I prayed for this, I grew for this, now it shows in everything. This joy looks good on me. This peace fits perfectly. I wear my life so beautifully. This joy looks good on me. This light came back to me. Now I shine naturally. When I look at who I am, this joy looks good on me. Cheers.